And when they explained to me what it was all about, I thought, you know, there must be a catch in it. It must be a con.
There's no landlord breathing down your neck to tell you that you can't put a shelf on the wall there.
We've organised things as things have arisen.
The only way to get on is to bring things out in the open, even small things, you know.
What distinguishes this co-op from any other set-up is the fact that decisions are taken by tenants.
People say quite justifiably, perhaps, that there's far too much talk and not much decision-making. But I think that will change when we actually take over ownership, when SCD move out.
At the moment, each house makes its own rules, and most decisions are made at house meetings. It's normally held round the kitchen table, and often at a moment's notice. The process of selection, choosing who lives in the house and who lives in which house, is a continuing bone of contention.
Well, if you remember, when we started this place a year ago, SCD did all the choosing of people to live here. Yeah. But obviously they're not qualified to choose who we live with. So we decided to let the house have the final say on who came in. And you know that was unsuccessful, because one guy, notably, lost his job because he couldn't find a place to live in the area because somebody's friend was invited to live in that house. Yeah. And then we started the membership panel, and it did work much better than the house having the final say.
That's why I think the panel works as just a selective sort of committee. Obviously, if people have got delegates, you know, you can sort of filter it a little bit. People know, you know, the people in their house and who'll fit in with who. So I think that works.
We can't surely house all the people in need in London. All I think we have to do, well, it's obvious, all we have to do is make sure people are qualified, and then we should choose people that fit with the houses. And it's, if the houses work, the co-op works. If the houses fail, forget the co-op. That's the way it goes.
Yes, but I don't think a house can do any more in, you know, a few minutes sort of interview than a panel can do. And if, as I said, as if houses have right sort of representation, then it'll work just as well.
The only way, though, is if the house make a mistake, the house live with it.
You've got to remember the case where the house wrote to the membership panel and said they didn't want any blacks sent to their house.
Well, discrimination is against the law, so I really don't think that we need to bother with that. We can't let it go on. But in general, if you give the house the final say, you're saying that you'll trust the house, and it might break down in a couple of cases where houses aren't interested enough. But in general, I think, by giving people more autonomy, it will increase involvement.
Yeah. Well, how are you going to guarantee that discrimination doesn't take place if you don't have a membership panel?
Well, if it should, we always have appeal to the Tenants Committee.
And I got to know vaguely what the House thinks, because I've got the committee meeting next week.
Lynn, the House representative, takes the opinions of her house to the Tenants Committee meeting, held every fortnight. Here, it's not just the feelings of the House, but of the street that are most important.
Well, if there are no more apologies for absence, perhaps we could move to the main business of the meeting, which is membership. Now, I think we're all agreed that there should be a membership panel, which should initially vet people on grounds of cooperativeness and housing need. What separates us, I think, is whether the House should have the final say or the panel. Now, we must come to some decision on this today as the Tenants Committee.
If we're going to have a cooperative that's going to work well, we've got to have people getting on together, living together and being happy together. And I think there's only one way we're going to get that, is if the people in each house can decide who's going to move in with them, and those people who are going to, prospective new members, have the chance to meet those people in the house and let both sides sort of come together and sort of, you know, decide what they're letting themselves in for.
You've got to look at the cooperative as a unitary whole. It's not separate houses. We're all living in separate houses, okay, but the cooperative's not going to work unless the cooperative works as a whole.
I think that you've got to have a basis, which is the house, and I think that especially looking at the nuclear nature of the houses we have here, we have no real option on this matter.
Okay, but look, if you have the House choosing members, you're going to have the House choosing members because of the colour of their shoes, or worse, the colour of their skins. Now, in fact, we want people to choose new members on the objective criteria we've laid down. What's more, it's not just the two objective criteria. We've got an IDA quota to keep up. We have to take so many members who are IDA students.
Certainly, but this is where the membership committee comes in. It can choose those people it thinks are suitable for the cooperative. But one person may well fit in with one group of people and not with another. You mention various prejudices. Okay, but then people are living here, they're going to have to get on. If these are there, and perhaps in some cases they're unavoidable, we may not like them, but they may be there, is it fair to project someone into an environment where they may be out of place and unwelcome?
Of course not, but remember, we were all thrown together when this place was set up. We didn't know each other, most of the people who are living here didn't know each other, but we've all got on fairly well. There haven't been any great disasters. Well, there haven't.
Selwyn, look, the only way a cooperative's going to work, all right, is if each house itself works. If the houses don't work, the cooperative can't work, can it? Okay, so the only way the houses are going to work is if the people in the house get on together. All right? So, I mean, the only way the houses are going to get on is if the people come down and meet the people in the houses first.
I think our house is a good example of that. We've had, 4 people leave in the past 2 months, and 2 have just walked out without saying it. The first thing we knew was when they sort of walked out the door and said goodbye, that's it.
Right, because when I moved in here, all right, I just said, right, you're in house 4, you're in this room, good luck, basically, and I just moved in. And I didn't know anyone in the house.
And you were obviously lucky because you're happy there, but what about the people you were talking about, Frank, who just left?
Yeah.
There's one other aspect which I haven't touched upon, and I don't think that the discussion's touched upon, and that is the public authorities that lent the cooperative the money to be set up were worried that you can't entrust decision-making to tenants because they'd allow their friends to move in. They take advantage of the fact that they were the people making decisions. They take selfish decisions. Now, if you allow the house to have the final say on membership, then you're bound to allow this selfishness to become public, to come to the fore.
I think it's worth taking account of what Selwyn says. This is £500,000 worth of property lent by the government, and we really must take cognizance of these things.
There is a problem here. I mean, if the house has the final say and turns people down, who's going to pay for the empty rooms?
Yeah, the house, the co-op.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean...
Also, the person who's just...
Surely what we're interested in is getting the right people here, and I think it's no good. People have signed a year's lease. We have a duty to maintain the cooperative running in the way it's in an efficient manner with the right people living here. We're trying to create a community, and I think that this argument of what happens to the room if it's left vacant because people turn people down, it's not the fault of the people living in the house. It's perhaps the fault of the selection procedure, and it's up to us to get the right people to move in.
I don't think we're too far apart, in fact. The point basically is where do you draw the line? Where do you say the final say goes? Now, nobody's saying the house shouldn't be consulted on membership. Of course it should. It's just that finally the decision has to be taken. Is this person acceptable or not? And I maintain, and I would propose, in fact, to this meeting, that we decide that the final say is taken, the final decision is taken by the membership panel and not by the House. However, the House must be consulted beforehand.
Well, I'll make a counter proposal on that one, because I don't think that's really strong enough. I think that the House, whatever happens, must have the final say. I'd go along with your basic panel, but I still feel that the House, in the end, must meet the applicant and make the final decision.
Well, we've had one proposal from Selwyn. Could he clarify by saying what sort of consultation he has in mind?
Well, we've got 3 people on the panel who are going to be doing the interviewing. We could invite one person from the House to sit in on the interview and to advise the panel. Yes, they can ask questions, of course.
Yeah, that would be practical, because if you had an applicant and you had 4 houses with vacancies, well, you could have 1 person from each house, 3 panel members, which is not too many. Well, it's not as hostile.
It's a manageable number.
It's not as hostile as going around to houses of 10 people on 5 different occasions. Yes?
Yes, that was what my house agreed that they would prefer, rather than have a totally final say by the panel, as long as you send a representative along.
Yeah.
Who can ask the person questions and get to know them as well, and perhaps take them back to the house?
Well, shall we move to a vote? I think we've talked about it in our houses so long, and we could talk about it in the committee all night. Agreed? Yeah. Okay. Can we have votes, please, first on Selwyn's proposal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those in favour of Bill's proposal? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, I declare that Selwyn's motion has been passed.
So the membership panel, a representative group of 3, plus someone from the house where there's a vacancy, continues as the fairest way of sorting out who will live at Sanford Walk. The panel meets informally in someone's room.
Right, you're one of our applicants. Can you give us your name, please?
Elizabeth, Spain.
Elizabeth. Let's just check whether you're on the list.